What's up, Taiwan? Good evening. I'm Erika Liu with 10 minutes of news from here in Taiwan and around the world. High school students in Taiwan are urging the public to vote yes to lower the national voting age from 20 to 18 in an upcoming referendum. A constitutional amendment to change the age of suffrage passed with bipartisan support back in March, but the amendment still needs a national referendum to come into effect, with at least half of all eligible voters voting in favor. The ballot will take place in November, together with nationwide local elections. President Tsai Ing-wen backs the move, saying only 10 countries in the world have a voting age over 18, and Taiwan needs to catch up.
我们认为通过18岁公民权，台湾的民主会更向前。那么通过18岁的公民权，台湾人也将可以告诉全世界，我们有决心让民主继续前进，继续深化。
Taiwan's defense ministry says Beijing is conducting cognitive warfare by releasing footage claiming to show military drills happening close to the outlying Penghu Islands. The footage shows fighter jets in the air and includes a shot of the islands that appears to be taken from the cockpit of a plane. It's part of combat training exercises that took place on Monday, according to a Chinese military spokesperson. Taiwan's military responded by publishing a map to show that the Chinese aircraft were actually far outside Taiwan's territorial airspace. When asked about the incident, officials denounced the footage as an attempt to intimidate Taiwan and said they were in control of the situation.
中共运用认知战等相关的伎俩来浮夸来说明他们多么接近我们的澎湖，我想那都是不争的事实。更何况我们国军呢都是随时监控，随时应处。
Well, there's another tactic that China used in its military exercises this month, a tactic that experts say could become the new normal. Drones were deployed over Taiwan's offshore islands in the drills ordered by Beijing to protest U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taipei. Analysts say China is trying to degrade Taiwan's military. Ryan Kilpatrick explains.
In the skies over Taiwan, a new threat appears on the horizon. Drones, also known as unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, were deployed by China in unprecedented drills. It was Beijing's response to U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taipei. Analysts say it was a new theater for the Chinese People's Liberation Army drones, but a well-worn tactic.
The PLA does have a precedent of using UAVs as a means of maintaining presence and persistent surveillance of disputed waters, including in the East China Sea and in the vicinity of the Senkaku Diaoyu Islands. But the use of UAVs with these types of pressure tactics or coercive exercises is a bit more of a new phenomenon.
Like China's incursions into Taiwan's air defense zone, the use of these drones is seen as having a psychological effect, chipping away at morale and faith in the armed forces. But they could serve another purpose.
We could imagine a couple potential benefits from that kind of tactic, one of which would be to evaluate the readiness of the garrisons on the offshore islands in question and how quickly their defense commands are able to detect the UAVs and respond. If these kinds of activities were to become routine, that could be a further means by which to desensitize these defense commands to having UAVs operating in vicinity.
The drones that harried Taiwan's forces on the offshore islands this month may have been a first, but it is unlikely they will be the last.
I think we can expect to see the continuation and, if anything, escalation of these types of activities, because UAVs are a very useful instrument for these kinds of pressure campaigns or punitive measures. The advantage from Beijing's perspective is that they can increase the pressures, can try to provoke a response psychologically, but with lesser likelihood of an accident that could result in a fatality and with less costs in terms of sort of the wear and tear on manned aircraft and assets.
As China continues advancing in drone technology, Taiwan faces a serious challenge. In this new realm, the rules of engagement are opaque. To meet it, Taiwan is developing its own capacity, both to engage enemy drones and to produce its own UAVs, defending the country's skies in the face of new threats. Ryan Kilpatrick for TaiwanPlus.
A suspect has been arrested in connection with a deadly hospital shooting in Taiwan's southern city of Kaohsiung. Police say the man and the victim were once business partners. The gunman burst into a hospital waiting area on Wednesday morning and fired at the man, hitting him in the head and chest before fleeing. The victim later died of his injuries. Local media reports say the two had a dispute several years ago over money. The suspect had previously gone to the victim's home and threatened him with a gun on multiple occasions. Police in northern Taiwan's new Taipei city have discovered a body hidden in the refrigerator of a family home. Family members admitted that they stored the body of their grandmother there for 5 years.
那据同住的家属表示呢，是因为没有钱可以下葬，所以才有这样的行为。那警方目前呢，已经将遗体移往殡仪馆冰存。
While police say they do not suspect foul play, they are still investigating the case. The family continued to collect benefits in the grandmother's name, receiving over $21,000. New daily COVID cases in Taiwan are expected to start picking up again starting next week. That's according to the country's Pandemic Response Center, which says the Omicron BA4 and BA5 subvariants are starting to circulate in the country, particularly in the north. This comes as a local pilots union is calling on the government to scrap quarantine restrictions for flight crews ahead of an expected uptick in international travel. As Kenning reports, the country's pilots and cabin staff still face some of the world's tightest regulations.
Another meal alone. When flight crew from Taiwan arrive in a foreign country, they are immediately taken into quarantine and locked in a room with a single-use key until it is time for them to leave for their return flight. Outside of their hotels, they often see people living normal lives, with no one wearing a mask.
机组人也是人，我们也有我们的人权跟我们移动的自由。一次性房卡，还有只能在房间里头用餐这样的一个情况，其实已经构成了拘禁这样的一个事实。
Taiwan's pilots have been living under these conditions for 2 years. The only other country in the world with such strict regulations for flight crew is China. The pilots' union argues that the risk of getting COVID-19 is higher in Taiwan than in most other countries, and is calling for the government to completely end overseas quarantine requirements. But authorities say that it is unlikely to happen anytime soon.
针对这个机组员在这2个月之间的染疫的情形做一个评估。 那这评估之后才有办法，就是针对这个后续他们在站外要不要放宽的部分来做一个就是在专家会议里面进行，看要怎么一个松绑。
With more flights starting to fly in and out of Taiwan as the country's borders slowly open, flight crews will have to navigate an increasing workload, all while remaining isolated from a quick return to normal life. Patrick Chen and Ken Ning for TaiwanPlus.
Weather experts are watching for a possible typhoon that could develop near Taiwan next week. If the storm comes, it would break an unusual streak of 2 years with no typhoon warnings in the first 8 months of the year. The country's typhoon season usually runs from July to September, with most typhoons occurring in August. This year, the Weather Bureau has yet to issue a single typhoon warning. In fact, the hot weather and lack of storms have caused a drought in the normally rainy northern port city of Keelung, prompting the city's mayor to call on citizens to conserve water. Taiwanese chipmaker MediaTek says it has made the world's first successful satellite call using a cell phone. It's a breakthrough that could bring high-speed broadband coverage to isolated areas. The company says the achievement was a result of cooperation with Taiwan's Industrial Technology Research Institute and the Roda and Schwartz Low Earth Orbit Simulator. The simulator is a company that tests small satellites. MediaTek says future 5G non-terrestrial networks resulting from the breakthrough will bring broadband coverage to parts of the planet that land-based infrastructure can't reach. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally today, we leave you with images of French freediver Arnold Gerald breaking the world record for the deepest free dive. Diving in the Bahamas, he descended to a depth of 120 meters in 3 minutes and 34 seconds. I'm Erika Liu. Take care and see you next time.